Hello everyone, we are here to continue our story. I survived the shark attacks of 1916. We are on chapter 5. Chet ran screaming out of the water. Dewey! Dewey! He made it to the bank and searched the water for Monty and Sid, but they were gone too. They'd been eaten? Chet was the only one left? He was about to run up Main Street for help, but then Dewey came up sputtering. "You idiot!" Dewey said, looking around. "You kept me under too long. That wasn't the plan." Who was Dewey talking to, and what did he mean about a plan? Sid came up out of the water, gasping for breath. Where was the shark? And why was Sid laughing? "We got you," Sid shouted to Chet. He held something up. A chipped gray tile. The fin. Chet's head started to spin. He felt like he might throw up. They tricked him? Monty was standing on the bank on the other side of the creek. "I can't believe you fell for that," he laughed. Chet couldn't talk. His heart seemed to be stuck in his throat. Why would they do that? "You should have heard yourself," Monty shouted. "You screamed so loud. Your mama probably heard you all the way in California." Chet's cheeks were bright red. His hands were shaking. How could he have thought these guys wanted to be his friends? They just wanted someone to pick on. That was the only reason they'd invited him to this creek. Chet grabbed his clothes and got dressed. "Hey," Sid yelled, "don't be sore." They all scrambled out of the water and ran over to him. "We were just joking around with you. We didn't mean to scare you so bad. We always do pranks." But Chet wasn't listening. His heart was pounding and his cheeks burned. He laced up his boots, stood up, and stormed away. Chapter 6. The next day, the guys came by the diner smiling like everything was normal. Chet didn't wave back. He slipped into the kitchen before they sat down at the counter and didn't come out until they were gone. After the breakfast rush was over, Uncle Jerry handed Chet a mug of root beer and told him to have a seat. "What's wrong, kiddo?" he asked, sitting on the stool next to Chet. "I see you've been avoiding your buddies." "They're not my buddies," Chet said. "I hardly know them." Uncle Jerry peered at Chet. "Is this because of that stunt at the creek?" "You heard about that?" Chet said. Uncle Jerry chuckled, but not in a nasty way. "They didn't mean any harm," he said. "You should be flattered." "How's that?" Chet said. They made me feel like an idiot." "It means they like you, that you're one of them," Uncle Jerry said. "Now they're expecting you to get them back. Didn't you know that's how it works?" How could Chet know? He's never had any real friends before. He wanted to know more, but before he could ask, Mr. Colton and Mr. J came through the door. They were Uncle Jerry's oldest friends. Mr. Colton owned the hardware store. Dr. J took care of practically everyone in town. They came in every day for coffee and to chat about baseball with Uncle Jerry. But today the men didn't want to talk about Babe Ruth's pitching record, or Mr. Colton held up the morning paper so Uncle Jerry and Chet could read the front page headline. "Shark kills second bather in New Jersey, July 7th of 1916. Spring Lake, New Jersey. A shark attacked Charles Butter, 28, while he was swimming alone in the ocean yesterday afternoon. Lifeguards rushed to his rescue, but the young man's wounds were so severe that he bled to death before they reached the shore. Butter, a well-liked bell captain of the Sussex Hotel, was known to be a strong swimmer, but he was no match for the beast, which attacked without mercy. Before he perished, Butter was able to tell a remarkable story to his rescuers. He was a big gray fellow and as rough as sandpaper, Butter said. I didn't see him until after he struck me the first time. That was when I yelled. I thought that he had gone on, but only to return and shot back at me and snipped my left leg off. He yanked me clear under before he let go. He came back at me. He shook me like a terrier shakes a rat. Butter tried to say more, but he became too weak and he died of a massive blood loss and shock before the lifeguards could get him back to the shore. Officials were warning people not to swim alone. "I still don't believe it," said Uncle Jerry. "Someone is cooking up these stories to sell newspapers." Could be, Mr. Colton said. Folks are terrified, though. My wife's cousin lives out there, and she says nobody will go near the ocean. They have fishermen out with rifles shooting at anything that moves. You know what this reminds me of, Dr. J said? The Creek Devil. What's that? Chet asked. Mr. Colton and Mr. J chuckled. Then Mr. Colton shifted his hefty body forward on the stool. He leaned closer to Chet. Old-timers say that there's a monster that lives down near the creek. He's covered with mud, eats snakes and bats, and makes a terrible hissing sound. Moans too. Legend is that he comes out every decade and drags a kid back into the mud with him. People believe that? Chet said. Everyone in town knows the legend, Uncle Jerry said, but nobody really believes it, except for Jerry here, Dr. J said, slapping Uncle Jerry on the shoulder. When we were little, he wouldn't go near that creek. Bah, Uncle Jerry said, waving his hand at Dr. J. I don't know what you're talking about. Doesn't someone need a wart removed or something? Was Uncle Jerry blushing? Imagine Uncle Jerry being afraid of a made-up monster. Chet smiled to himself. Maybe there was hope for him yet. Suddenly, Chet had an idea for the greatest prank ever. Folks would be talking about it for years, and then he'd be a part of the gang for sure. Dewey, Monty, and Sid were going to come face to face with the Creek's Devil. And that is the end of Chapter 6. Thanks for listening.